So in this video, we'll be talking about the most important rules when it comes to a good YouTube automation edit. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you're talking to your editor or you're doing the edit yourself, you want to make sure that 80% of your focus goes into the first minute of the video. If you look at the YouTube retention graph, you often see that there's a huge drop off at the start of the video. So in order to eliminate it and essentially get better results, what you should be doing is really put in the work in the first minute of the video, since this will yield the greatest return. So make sure when you're doing an edit that most of your time goes into that first minute, because that will greatly increase the chances that your video will go viral, since again the drop-off is so large. If you can fix that drop-off at the start and essentially hook them for the rest of the video, because usually when people are on YouTube and on a mobile phone, for example, what they'll do is they'll look at a YouTube video in vertical mode. And then for the first 30 seconds or so, they will hold their phone in vertical mode. And essentially, if you can hook them in those first 30 seconds, they will essentially switch to landscape mode, which when they do that, they essentially commit to the video. So if you've gotten the viewer to switch to the landscape mode, essentially the chances are way bigger that they will watch the rest of the video. So making sure those first 30 seconds of the video is perfect is really essential. So that's why you should dedicate 80% of your focus to the first 30 seconds to a minute of your video. So make sure to keep that in mind while editing. The second tip I want to talk about is making sure you avoid stock footage as much as possible. You really want to make sure you're getting authentic footage. So I often tell editors, please don't use stock footage. Just try and step out of your comfort zone and essentially start utilizing footage from more authentic places. So think about getting clips from movies. Think about making mini animations with images. Think about trying to get authentic images off of Google, or using AI to essentially create images that match what's being talked about in the video itself. So by doing this, you just create a way more authentic experience when the viewers click on your video. If you use stock footage, everyone recognizes it, and it's just so generic that often people just click off as soon as they see it. It's just really low effort. So try to stay away from stock footage and try to become more creative in your edit by utilizing footage from other places. So keep that in mind. So the third point I want to talk about is making sure your pacing and your rhythm is good in the edit. So pacing and rhythm is one of the most important parts of editing a good YouTube video. It's essentially like music. You have to understand that the flow of the video is a huge element when it comes to trying to increase your retention. So make sure there's a lot of variation between pacing and rhythm in your YouTube video itself. Think about, for example, that at the start of a video, you usually want to have a fast pacing and hold that for maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And then later throughout the video, you will variate that pacing or rhythm to essentially create a variation. So by making high paced edits at the start and then lowering that pacing later throughout that video, you create essentially a kind of roller coaster where people have to pay attention, because if you stay on one rhythm or one type of pacing throughout the whole video, it becomes really monotone. So try to really switch it up sometimes, depending on the story you're telling, depending on the part of the video where you're at. Try to differentiate between different types of pacing. It's really important, and it's essentially the art of editing. So keep that in mind. Try and study that as much as possible and incorporate that into your next video. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of silence. Usually YouTube videos are 100% talking, like especially automation videos. It's like a voiceover going at it for 10 minutes straight. It's like literally someone reading an audiobook. Instead, what you want to do is invoke more emotion by creating suspense using silence. So say, for example, someone is talking like I am, and they're not stopping with talking. It's really, it's really hard for the viewers to know when to pay attention, because everything is the same the whole time. So what you want to do is sometimes just add a bit of silence. So by adding silence like that, people focus on the video once again, and that increases retention, because if there's changes, people take attention to it. So make sure you add a little bit of silence throughout the video, because essentially it will really help people know when important parts are coming. So really valuable tip. Let's move on to the next one. So the next tip I want to talk about is the power of sound. So essentially a lot of the time, and this is probably the most common mistake I've seen, is that people underutilize music and sound effects within their YouTube automation videos. I know there's a lot of documentary channels that really utilize sound effect and sound design really, really well. But a lot of YouTube automation channels still only use some generic background music, generic voiceovers, and you want to stay away from that. You essentially want to try and invoke emotion by using different types of music. Try and switch up the background music in the edit itself. Try to add some sound effect, for example, to essentially accentuate some parts of the video. This really, really helps, again, with keeping that retention high, because you can literally evoke so much different emotions with different types of music and sound effect that you can create videos that hold retention really well. So again, keep that in mind. The next thing that's really powerful for an editor is making sure he understands the story and he understands the script. If he doesn't know what the script is about, or he doesn't know what story you're trying to tell, it's way harder for him to make the correct edit to that script and to that voiceover. So make sure you get an editor to really sometimes read through the script and kind of talk with the scriptwriter himself, and make sure they communicate and get to a mutual understanding of what the message is they're trying to convey, or what the story is they're trying to tell. Because this really helps with getting an edit and a script that feels like they're unified. Otherwise, you get a really big disconnect between what is being said and what is visually being displayed. So really keep that in mind. Try and get the scriptwriter and video editor to collaborate and understand what story they're trying to tell. So the next part, which is also really important, and it kind of links into pacing and variation, is making sure you really, really add a lot of variation to your videos itself. So a lot of the times, again, YouTube automation videos can become very monotone very quickly. They usually sound like Wikipedia articles. So make sure you add a lot of variation on every single level of the edit. So try to mix up the type of editing you're doing. So sometimes you're using, sometimes you might be using animations. Sometimes you might be using clips. And interruptions, like for example, you could use interviews from certain famous people talking about a certain subject. You could use news clips to add context to a video. So make sure you switch it up, and it's not only the voiceover talking. It should be a variation of different type of clips and different types of visual storytelling. And this, again, will make your video 10 times better. So try to mix it up, try to add that variation. It will help a ton. So the last thing I want to talk about is making sure the editor or yourself constantly is improving their edit. So make sure to give constructive feedback for the editor, and make sure he is constantly implementing that feedback and getting better at editing your videos, because this is a major asset for the long term. So it might sound like a very generic tip, but then again, I see a lot of channels not doing this, and usually their quality remains the same for months. So try to step up that edit every single video, because if you just improve by 1% every single day, you will see major returns in the long run. So make sure to invest a little bit of time there. Anyway, I hope this video was valuable. Thank you very much for watching.